Sakura is a high school student in modern-day Japan who is as beautiful and pleasant as her namesake cherry blossoms. Her friendly and outgoing personality, good looks, and excellent grades make her the most popular girl in school. But there's another side to her that's made out of fire. She values justice and fairness above everything else and has trained herself in the defensive martial art of Aikido to become tough and resilient. One day, she witnesses the terrible sight of 6 men being burned alive by blue flames and a black-haired boy standing in the middle. She immediately calls the police and runs to save the victims herself. A single police officer with no sense of emergency casually peedals his way to her, and she frantically leads him to the crime scene only to find nothing there. After investigating the nothingness of it all, the officer suggests that maybe she was dreaming and goes back to the station to eat donuts. However, she still can't let it out of her mind. Class begins with the introduction of a new transfer student, and of course, it turns out to be the guy she saw in the middle of the fires last night. He introduces himself as Ryo Gaemi and says he looks forward to getting to know everyone. The girls immediately start swooning over his handsome appearance, but Sakura is not so excited. After class, she not so subtly observes him as he talks to the other guys, so her friend Oba asks if she likes him. Sakura ignores her and gets up to tell him she wants to talk alone and to follow her. Everybody is beyond scandalized and starts immediately gossiping over this potentially perfect and iconic couple. They go to the school terrace to talk in private, but the entire school population comes to watch them from a distance. She gets straight to the point, asking where and what he was doing last night, to which he answers that he was at his job. Then she directly confronts him about the glove on his hand, accusing him of using it to hide the burns he got when he killed all those people last night. He takes off the glove to show his hand is completely normal with a silver ring on his thumb. He explains that the glove is a good luck charm given to him by someone special when he hurt his hand as a child so that it never happens again. She runs out of things to say, so he graciously tells her he wishes to become friends and walks away. This makes everybody think he rejected her, causing the school to break out in a riot. Any press is good press, and this further boosts the popularity of Rei among the girls. Sakura, who lives in her own world, is frustrated over her failure and is determined to catch him. She stalks him persistently, even trying to follow him after school, but he's aware of this and hides to get rid of her. Sure, it's okay when she stalks, but when I do it, it's creepy and get a restraining order against me. Next, she goes to the scene of the crime in the hope that he'll show up there again. While on the lookout, she feeds a dog named Elle that was abandoned after her owner died. She tries to copy the way her owner would pet her while feeding, but she gets spooked and runs away. Reappears at that moment and quickly bonds with the dog after recognizing that she doesn't trust people because of past bad experiences. This makes Sakura realize he's not as bad as she thought. He asks her if Elle is a stray dog. She replies that his owner was a homeless man who was killed by a bunch of thugs from a gang named G Falcon who bear falcon tattoos on their chests. She's bitter that nobody cared about this poor man's death and that these criminals go unpunished because they're protected by the gang's power and influence, which even manages to make the police turn a blind eye. Ria points out that she can always remember him even if the world forgets, and she doesn't need the country's laws to bring them to justice, quoting the eye for an eye principle. Although she thinks it's too gruesome a philosophy, she admires his sentiment and finally gives him a smile. By the next day, even she believes she was delusional about the burning incident. Obo works hard as a wingman by inviting them to karaoke after school. However, they both decline her invitation because they have work to do. Ri shares that he's a garbage man and excuses himself because his employer is already impatiently calling him. Sakura goes back to the park to feed Elle, who runs away from her again. She hears some thrashing and someone groaning in pain, so she immediately goes to investigate. She sees a man being beaten up by a group of gangsters and yells at them to stop, showing them she's already called the police. The gangsters start laughing because they know the cops can't do shit. She sees the falcon tattoos on their chests and realizes she's kinda screwed. The leader of the G Falcons comes forward and tells her to scram because they're simply interrogating the hobos who live here for leads on their missing men. She immediately thinks of the fire incident and impulsively asks if it happened 2 days ago. Realizing she must know something, they surround her and demand her to reveal everything. However, she's in a shocked daze because it confirms that she didn't just see things and that people did get burned to death. One of the men tries to manhandle her, but she immediately throws him aside. All of them jump on her, but she takes them on like a girl boss until one of them tasers her in the back. Unable to move anymore, they start kicking her around and tie her hands up with a belt. Elle suddenly shows up to protect her, but the poor dog gets brutally beaten up. Seeing this, Sakura jumps on her feet and gets in front of Elle, but they simply kick her behind and are about to stab her with a knife when Rie shows up to check on the dog. While petting her, he inspects her bloodied body and confirms several of her organs and bones have been destroyed to the extent that she can't be saved. Sakura shouts at him to take him to the hospital, but he just tells her he did a good job protecting Sakura and breaks his neck to kill her instantly. Next, he turns to one of the goons and says, "Eagle for an evil." He takes off his gloves, grabs the goon's face with the same hand, and covers him in scorching blue flames just like the ones Sakura saw the other day. He faces the others, stating that he's doing his job of clearing the trash as a garbage man and incinerates the rest as well. Finally, he grabs Sakura's face and sets her on flame too. The next day, she wakes up in her bedroom with a hazy memory of last night. Her parents are relieved to see her doing well, and she asks them what happened last night. They say her father found her unconscious in front of their door and have no idea who carried her all the way there. At school, she spends time recounting the events and realizes Rie tried to kill her and wonders why he ended up sparing her. She enters the class where he has the nerve to look straight at her and smile. Oba enthusiastically greets her and tries to make conversation, but Sakura is too shaken up to reciprocate. Oba notices and asks her what's up, to which she almost lets slip about the events yesterday, but Rie interrupts by butting in. He lightheartedly laughs as Oba teases him about his crush on Sakura and puts his gloved hand on Oba, causing Sakura to burst and pull her away from him because she's scared he'll set her aflame. The whole situation gets painted as if Sakura's gone crazy. After that, Rie keeps a constant watch on her, causing her to get worried that she'll endanger anyone who gets close to her, so she avoids Oba. Her friend misinterprets this as Sakura choosing a guy over her and gets mad. Frustrated, Sakura publicly asks Rie to walk her home to talk things over and then grabs Oba and assures her she'll explain everything after it's all over. Oba understands and wishes her luck. After school, she takes Rie to a crowded street where she's sure he can't pull anything and confronts him about killing the G-Falcon men. He admits to it right away and asks what the harm is in disposing of trash like them. She asks if he thinks he's some noble deliverer of justice, to which he answers that he is evil. She demands he turn himself to the police for killing all those people. Hearing this, he starts laughing and claims that he can't be judged by the law because he isn't like other people. Then, in a move she never expected him to pull in such plain sight, he grabs her face and attempts to burn her since she was a witness. She reflexively bats his hands away before the flames erupt, causing her bag to catch fire instead. She runs away, but he catches up to her and grabs her hand. She screams, expecting to get burnt, but he just smiles and says, "It's just a prank, bro." Then he reveals that he is a code breaker, and his job is to be evil and judge the evil that even the law can't deliver fair justice to, like the G-Falcon thugs who killed the innocent homeless man and his precious dog. He tells her to be honest with herself and think about all the assholes she's wanted dead, but she adamantly shakes the thought away as wrong and swears to follow him to prevent him from harming anyone ever again. He laughs and agrees on the condition that if she tells anybody about him, he will burn her, the person she told, and anyone around, while making an example out of an unfortunate Starbucks entrance. Later, he calls the higher-ups and informs them he's decided not to dispose of Sakura because she's an interesting rare breed case who doesn't burn even with his flames. The next day, he waits for her outside her house to go to school together as a part of his exercise of observing her. Nice excuse, Rie? Oba sees this and congratulates her, saying she doesn't need to explain anything. However, she still apologizes because she'll be coming and going to school with him instead of her as they've always done. A jealous soy boy charges toward Rai with a bamboo sword because he can't handle his favorite TikTok girl, Sakura, dating someone else. Sakura notices Rai raising his hand and jumps in front of him to flick the sword away before he can whip out his pyro spell, and then proceeds to yell for the whole hallway to hear that if anyone lands a finger on Rai, we'll have to answer to her. After class, he gets assigned to school cleanup the next day and is advised to go to the student council room for his duty checklist. Before anyone else can paranoid, Sakura volunteers to show him to the room. On the way, they run into Fujiwara-senpai, who has a crush on Sakura. She immediately likes Rai because he agrees Sakura is a nice girl, so she decides to reveal her secret to him. She takes off her glasses to reveal she has beautiful different-colored eyes. One is brown while the other is blue. He immediately grabs her head as if to set her on fire, causing Sakura to panic. Slowly, he regains his composure, brushes her hair, and apologizes for mistaking her for someone else. Later that day, Sakura follows him on one of his missions despite his warnings. They enter an apartment building where Rie unlocks the door of one of the apartments. He attacks the first person he sees, knocking him out cold. As usual, Sakura scolds him before she walks into the room and realizes they're in a Yakuza den where even a couple of corrupt cops are present. The Yakuza leader is intrigued by his confidence and asks what his business is. He mentions how he noticed that ever since the G-Falcons were taken down by him, the Yakuza is having trouble peddling drugs. The boss admires his ballsy sales pitch and offers him a job. This is when Sakura butts in and starts moral policing them, causing everyone in the room to burst out laughing. One of the actual police officers pulls a gun on her, So Rai steps in and tells her there's no way to get through to them with words. Instead, one must use force. With that, he sets his hand on fire and kills everyone one by one. In the midst of the slaughter, he stops a bullet with his flaming hand, causing it to bleed. Sakura is horrified by what just happened and yells at Rie that surely there was a better way to handle this than killing them. One of the drug-addicted victims sits beside the main door, crippled by the pain of withdrawal. His daughter is in the same state in the bathroom, and Sakura tries to help her. Rie spares her no such compassion and starts strangling her when she says she wants to die. While suffocating, she croaks out that she doesn't want to die after all, so he drops her. He tells her that feeling things like wanting to die is a luxury of life and she shouldn't take it lightly. Sakura is flabbergasted by his philosophy and hugs him, saying she feels his warmth and that she will strive to understand what is going on in his sick, twisted mind. In return, he punches her and tells her he doesn't want to be understood. Then he leaves the building and confronts Takada, the corrupt chief of police, to find out where a man named Hitomi is. Takada tries to make a run for it, but Rie pursues him and is about to kill him. However, he gets interrupted by a helicopter, out of which a man named Toki jumps out and kills Takada instead. Rie looks as annoyed as he can get, considering his monotonous face, to see Toki, the guy with different colored eyes that he detests. The next day, Rie appears before Eden, the supreme decision-making body of the Code Breakers. The committee commends him for his job despite being appointed as the last of the 6 Code Breakers. They give him his next assignment, which is the assassination of a politician named Shigeru Tabata. He asks if this guy is involved with Hitomi too, to which one of the road higher-ups says that it's not his job as a kept dog to know or care. Rie doesn't tolerate any sass and immediately sets the talking puppet on fire and tells the higher-ups to speak to him directly if they have the guts. Meanwhile, Sakura finds herself at her home's main gate again, with no memory of what happened the previous night and a cute puppy by her side. This is the second time this has happened, causing her parents to worry that she's become a crackhead or something. They lecture her about how crack is so 2010 and that she should switch to shrooms. She lies that she actually joined the mountaineering club, so she's been sleeping outside as endurance training. The parents sigh with relief and discreetly hide their stash away. She leaves home to go to school but sees a heterochromic eye guy waiting for her outside. He charmingly introduces himself as Toki, Codebreaker 004, and explains that he's Rie's substitute for the day. After claiming to be his close friend, she gets pumped up and says they need to discuss stuff about him. Toki agrees but wants a change of location and takes her to an empty park where they sit on a bench. He says he also has something important to discuss involving her and inches really close to her face. Yeah, he definitely watches pickup artist videos. Luckily, Rie appears and kicks him away. They get into a fight when Toki reminds him that they have tonight's work to discuss since the higher-ups don't have full faith in Rie to pull it off alone. Their brawl gradually dials up in intensity as they start using their powers, but Sakura puts an end to their catfight before either gets any scratches. Later, Sakura spots Toki walking around the campus during one of her classes, so she feigns sickness and excuses herself. Rie manages to sneak out as well, and they corner Toki. A teacher calls him out because he's wearing another school uniform, but he smooth talks her into letting him tour the school, and she lets him audit their classes for a day. During break, Sakura invites Rie to lunch to discuss things, but he declines. She invites Toki as well, who tries to wriggle out of it by saying he has work, but ultimately gets forced. She asks Toki if there's any way to get Rie to stop killing people, to which he answers that all code breakers have an objective like protecting someone or something, so they take up jobs that dirty their hands to ensure it. He's sure Rai has something like that going on as well. She also finds out that Fujiwara-senpai is Toki's older sister, so the resemblance is no coincidence. At this point, Rie joins them with the excuse that he doesn't want to take any risks because he doesn't know what stupid crap Sakura will pull. What it's Sundeer. However, they're unable to have the serious talk she wanted because their lunch throuple date gets 4th and 5th wheeled by 2 seniors, one of them being Fujiwara. Seeing her, Toki silently leaves before she notices him. When Sakura says her brother has come to visit, Fujiwara looks confused because no one is there and she has no brothers. Sakura tags along with Rie that night for the mission. On the way, she asks what the deal is with Fujiwara and Toki. He explains that code breakers are people who don't exist in society, so even if he had any family or connections before, they don't exist anymore. They all meet at the target's residence where Toki expertly shuts down the security system and breaks in by crumpling the front door like a soda can. Rai reveals that his special power is to manipulate magnetic fields. Once they enter, they're met with a group of armed guards who go straight for the kill, but Toki blocks their bullets with his powers and redirects them at the guards. Sakura gets in the way by tackling him even though they literally tried to kill him 2 seconds ago. Somebody throw her back in the kitchen where she belongs. Suddenly, a twister emerges between the two sides and the guards get turned into stone and crumble. The door bursts open and two men equipped with large backpacks that give them the ability to control wind and water arrive. They engage the code breakers in battle but quickly run out of fuel and retreat like chickens. Toki explains that this organization has been funded by the government to research special abilities. The code breakers receive direct orders from the Prime Minister so that evil can be checked, even if they're in the form of corrupt politicians and law enforcers. Their main target for this mission is Shigeru Tabata, a politician and head of this research facility. Although their experimentation on special abilities is government-sanctioned, the part that Eden, the code breakers' supreme decision-making body, has a problem with is that the failed test subjects are being killed and dissected for their organs, which are being trafficked. They enter the dissection room where they confirm the gruesome description in the reports. There they are greeted by Miss Tabata and the two wannabe superheroes who try to justify their evil. Rie is the first to attack and vaporizes the guy's water barrier. The wind and stone dude attacks Toki, who dashes away with Sakura by his side. He has some trouble facing the Baldy, but Sakura points out that the backpacks must be the source of their power, so he directly targets it. Unfortunately, they are made of carbon fiber, so they're unaffected by his powers. He changes gears by attacking it with metallic debris, causing the backpack to pop open like a soda can and push a child out. At the same time, the water dude runs out of power and thrashes his in frustration, revealing a child inside it as well. Sakura runs to the child and tries to make him get up. The little boy mumbles a request to kill them because they killed his little brother for having weak powers. Appalled, Toki puts an end to Baldy with a knife to his head. The boy thanks him and succumbs to death. Rie does the same to the other guy, after which Shigeru tries to run away, but Toki trips him and Rie finishes the deal. Tabata backs away until his daughter, Chiza, enters the scene in her wheelchair and asks what's going on. She thinks Rai is the fireballman from the superhero books she reads and gets excited that he's finally come because her father told her he would bring her the organ transplant she needs. This is when they realize he's been using this research facility as a front to find a matching donor for her daughter. He reveals he doesn't care about all the children he's killed because they'll ultimately become the state's dogs to do its dirty work, so he's giving them a better purpose by giving them a chance to become his daughter's donors. Rie won't tolerate any more BS from this murderer, so he's about to kill him when Sakura interferes yet again. However, this time she pushes him away from Rie's spell to beat the shit out of him herself because he had the audacity to speak about the kids he killed in such a way. Finally, she hugs him and says that he doesn't deserve to be killed despite all he did. Tabata finally realizes the unforgivable sins he's done and tells her to take care of Chiza. After that, he grabs the knife Toki used earlier to provoke Rie, who swiftly kills him by burning. Before he dies, he apologizes to Chiza for killing to meet his desires. Upon seeing her father die, Chiza throws her book at Rie in a fury and uses her special abilities to make the pages whiz around him as little paper blades. He goads her to get revenge on him when she's older before she passes out. Man, her therapist is going to get that bag. Sakura recognizes this gesture as an effort to give her a purpose in life. Elsewhere, Toki confronts Tabata's secretary, who's on the phone with the real mastermind behind the research plan. Once the mastermind learns a codebreaker caught him, he sends a mysterious electric signal to the secretary, who is forced to K-word himself involuntarily to prevent any info from leaking. Toki picks up the phone and learns that Hitomi, Codebreaker 001, is behind it all. The next day, Toki has lunch with the Prime Minister, who is actually his dad. He confesses he authorized the special ability research because he wanted to unload some of the burden forced upon the code breakers. Toki doesn't buy any of his excuses and reminds him that he agreed to become a code breaker to keep his sister out of it. Meanwhile, Sakura reads the newspaper and is amazed how even the media faked the circumstances of high-profile politician Tabata's death to cover the tracks of the secret code breakers. On their way to school, they run into Codebreaker 005 Prince, who asks Sakura to give him and Rie a moment of privacy. She informs Rie that Eden is unhappy with his decision to bring Sakura to the highly dangerous mission yesterday because she is a rare breed that needs protection. She warns him about overexerting himself because he could go lost soon, whatever that means. After that, she leaves. Elsewhere, we see Toki stumbling around and collapsing in a shady alleyway. Sakura is glad to know he has so many codebreaker pals and encourages him to open up to his classmates too, because friends are great. However, he only thinks of them as liabilities who might find out his true identity, and besides, the codebreakers aren't his friends, just colleagues. The classmates throw a surprise welcome party for Rie that day because they noticed he's been having a tough time talking to everyone except Sakura. Each of them gives him a letter about what they'd like to do with him. He reads through them all on the terrace while Sakura reiterates the importance of friendship. To her shock, he starts burning them, but she grabs them before they're destroyed. He explains that he doesn't like having things because people's things remain after they die, but he's memorized all the data in the letters and promises never to forget. Sakura jumps on his rare show of sentimentality to say he isn't non-existent, but he still persists that he doesn't need friends. As they go down the stairs, they see a bunch of men in black break into the school. Ri immediately speeds down the stairs to face them. All their bodies have electricity coursing through them. Ray takes off his glove and sets the front row ablaze while Sakura tries to interfere again, but he explains these agents are already dead and their corpses are being controlled. Sure enough, the guys on fire get back up as if nothing happened. Ri crumples to the ground out of exhaustion, but gets back up and fights until he collapses again. Sakura runs up to him in a panic and the zombie agents run straight at them. Miraculously, they're saved because their teacher, Miss Kanda, shoots the agents with her gun. Wait, what? Turns out Miss Kanda is a badass in disguise and she covers for Ri while he stops the zombies from reaching the classrooms. However, he's in no condition to fight and is saved by the arrival of Codebreakers 002, Hike, and 003 Yuki, who fend off the zombies with light manipulation and sonic waves, respectively. After the threat is eradicated, Ria collapses to the ground and loses consciousness. Hike explains that he's gone lost, an unavoidable consequence for all Codebreakers. Meanwhile, Toki is still unconscious in the dark alleyway, but now as a kid. They all assemble in a storeroom where they explain to Sakura that if Codebreakers overuse their abilities, they temporarily lose them for 24 hours and undergo a side effect depending on the person, which in Ri's case is hypothermia. While he's out cold, literally they fill her in on Codebreaker lore. Miss Kanda is an agent of Eden, tasked to provide support to the Codebreakers. Since Hike is 002, he has the added responsibility of judging the performance of the others. Miss Kanda quickly changes the subject when Sakura brings up 001, saying they should change their locations to avoid being attacked again. Since Ri's house's location must be known, Sakura brings them to hers because it's guarded by her father's Kizakura clan, the strongest and most prominent Yakuza group in Japan. Toki is already there waiting for them in child form. Even he's gotten lost and his symptom is age regression. That night, Hake tells Yuki that the zombie agents seem to target Ri and Sakura. They speculate why Hitomi might be targeting her, but can't arrive at anything conclusive. Ray wakes up from his slumber and looks around the house. Sakura's father notices him take an interest on the display katana, so he gives it to him and warns him that there will be consequences if Sakura gets in danger. 1 second later, Sakura is in danger because Hitomi infiltrates the house to abduct her. Yuki tries to fight Hitomi with his sound waves, but he blocks them easily and zaps him out of commission. Ri is no match for him with the katana and gets electrocuted multiple times. Hike and Toki restrain him momentarily with light and iron beams, causing him to lose Sakura, who was caught by Prince. And so the whole Codebreaker lineup shows up. He reveals his motive for doing all this is to get revenge on Eden. Ri doesn't need to hear more because all he's concerned with is that he's turned evil. He and Toki put up a fight, but it's all in vain because Hitomi can just bat them away with his lightning. Once he decides he's had enough of play fighting, he shows his true strength by unleashing a ball of lightning that will erase them all. However, Sakura nobly stands in front of it to take the hit, but she surprisingly withstands it completely. The Codebreakers prepare to continue the fight, but Hitomi bids his farewell because his true objective was to draw all of the Codebreakers here, while his right-hand man, Yukina, kidnaps the Prime Minister. This man is playing chess while others are playing checkers. Yukai emerges from the debris in his lost form as a cute cat. Even though his father has been abducted, Toki doesn't care and goes off somewhere alone. The others recoup after the intense battle and discuss. Hitomi deserted the Codebreakers 3 years ago and was mostly Mia until these recent happenings. If his revenge was directed at the Prime Minister, he would have killed him outright instead of going to the trouble of abducting him, so his objective must be something else. Everybody other than Ri seems hesitant about facing their former respected leader. Prince especially believes he must have his reasons, and they must try their best to get their old Hitomi back. Toki goes to visit Fujiwara and is surprised that she recognizes him as his brother, but she suddenly reverts to her usual self and doesn't remember him anymore. Ria looks through one of Sakura's family photo albums and notes that there are no baby pictures of her. Sakura says it's expected because her parents adopted her as an abandoned baby. Later, his parents privately share with him that they found Sakura abandoned outside their gate with blood splattered all over her, even though she was unhurt. Wherever she came from, she must have dealt with a tragic past, which is why she must be so innately averse to death. So far, they try their best to keep their daughter away from tragedy, but they fear she's thrust herself right into it now, so they request Ri to do his best to keep her away from pain. The next day, the Codebreakers split up to look for clues to where Hitomi and the Prime Minister are. Ri and Sakura find everything wiped out from the Yakuza hideout apartment. Miss Kanda has a sit-down with the other agents, who reveal they didn't tell her about Sakura being a rare breed before as a precaution in case she was one of Hitomi's informants since she used to work under him. Miss Kanda gets pissed at their suspicions and stakes her pride as an agent to put Hitomi down. Prince confronts Hike for being weirdly negligent about the Prime Minister's security and concentrating all the code breakers at Sakura's house. As if he were waiting to be accused, he instantly admits to being in on Hitomi's plan. He's about to attack her, but an explosion goes off on the bridge they're standing on and then in another building. Hike proclaims Hitomi's plan has already begun. Prince frantically tries to keep the bridge from falling apart with her shadow abilities, but Hike recommends she prioritizes escaping because she can't defend herself if she's preoccupied. Then he appears in front of Sakura and claims Rai is waiting for her at the Codebreaker's secret base. He leads her straight to Hitomi's base by tricking her into following him. She gets alarmed when she sees the Prime Minister tied to a chair. Heike reports to Hitomi that he's brought Sakura as instructed and asks if he can join him now, meaning he's decided to betray the Codebreakers. Around the same time, Miss Kanda and the Codebreakers receive an anonymous tip of Hitomi's current location. The TV in the hideout buzzes with breaking news of the terrorist attacks all over the city, which have resulted in many casualties. She bugs him endlessly to find out why he's doing such heinous things, so he reveals this is his way of saving the Codebreakers. Hitomi tells Hike he doesn't fully trust him yet because he must have had his eyes on him way before he even deserted to know the location of this hideout. Hike admits he did, but now that he's figured out his true intentions, he wants to help him. As a token of trust, he abducted Sakura and bloodied up Prince. Sakura tries to butt in, but he pins her down and says she has no idea what it feels like not to exist. I understand because my crush pretends I don't exist. Karen, if you're watching this, please lift the restraining order. Rie and Yuki arrive at the hideout together and face Hike, who dodges Rei's lunges and blocks Hike's sonic waves by covering himself with a rock barrier. Yuki tells Rie to go on up while he deals with 002. Rie goes up to see Miss Kanda point a gun at him under the control of Hitomi. She apologizes to Rie for losing control of her body and involuntarily shoots at him. He plans on letting her run out of bullets, but Hitomi states that he's compelled her to use the last bullet on her head. So if he chooses to evade them all, she'll die. Rie decides to kill her himself, but Sakura forces her way out of her binds and pushes Kanda away from his fire. Hitomi gets surprised that her intervention caused Miss Kanda to snap out of his control. She asks Hitomi how he can do such cruel things, to which he answers it should be obvious by looking at all the clocks in the room. Sure enough, the room is filled with stopped clocks. He explains that each of them corresponds to the time of death of former code breakers. Since they don't exist in society, these clocks are the only way to preserve their memory. The Prime Minister, who sent all his old friends to their deaths, must pay with his life. He orchestrated the terrorist attacks because the civilians must pay for living in fabricated peace while being ignorant of their code breaker martyrs. Plus, so many innocent civilians dying will make them desperate for a hero, which is when he will come forth and make the Codebreakers a known entity. Although Rie agrees with his hatred for being treated like dogs, he burns all the clocks and defies him for killing so many innocent people, especially because he hated that above all else before. They're about to fight, but Yukina stops them by building a wall of ice between them. Hitomi escapes while Yukina directs ice shards at Sakura. Luckily, Toki appears and blocks them with a wall. Yukina gets away with the Prime Minister by creating a blizzard in the room. Bombs explode all over the building, but Sakura weasels past and runs after him. She ends up joining them to ensure they don't kill the PM. In his flashback, Hitomi recalls the time he joined the Code Breakers as 006 when he was only 16 and bright-eyed about building a future where innocent kids were free to play outside carefreely. However, as years passed, he saw himself getting promoted to higher codes after the deaths of his comrades and grew jaded. Hike was the only other who saw as much death as he did. His breaking point was when 4 Codebreakers died in a single mission against rogue special ability holders, leaving only him and Hike, which led to him being promoted to 001. After that, the current crew was assembled, and Hitomi promised not to let anyone die under him. He asked Hike to investigate the deaths of 2 Codebreakers who mysteriously died from their own powers. When Hitomi asked Rie why he was a Codebreaker, he said he only cared about burning evil. Hitomi explained that the job of Codebreakers is not only to judge evil that the law can't, but also to protect those that the law can't, which is why he is dedicated to saving as many people as he can. He was sure he made the ultimate team until Hike informed him of his findings on the mysterious deaths of the 2 Codebreakers. Turns out that the gap between lost phases widens as Codebreakers use up their powers to a point when they can't enter the lost state before their powers go out of control and kill them. Eden is aware of this phenomenon and terms it Code End. This enrages Hitomi because he feels he's doomed even his ultimate team to their gradual Code End deaths. This was when he decided to face the Prime Minister for the sake of his beloved team members' lives. One day, his codebreakers were alerted that Hitomi went rogue and tried to assassinate the PM. Back in the present, he ties the Prime Minister at the top of the Sky Tower and publicly announces that he will execute him in 60 minutes, the remaining time during which dozens of bombs will explode throughout Japan and take the lives of 50,000. Yuki lets out a sonar wave across the country and detects 1,500 bombs in different locations across the country, which would be impossible to defuse within an hour. Sakura's father and his men frantically try to pinpoint Sakura's location through her cell signal. At the same time, he and the other codebreakers receive another anonymous message listing all the bomb locations. Another message informs them of the Prime Minister's location atop the Sky Tower. Rie, Toki, and Miss Kanda jet off there while Yuki tries to disable as many bombs as he can. Hitomi and Hike are alerted of Rie's arrival through the CCTV cameras, and Hitomi decides to face him because he wants to test his true abilities. Rie arrives at the top floor where he sees Sakura hanging by the ceiling. He asks Hitomi how to disable the bombs, but when he doesn't answer, he decides to force it out of him. He unsheathes the katana and infuses it with his fire, but finds it hard to get past the electric shock barrier. Hitomi goes on the attack and sends shocks in all directions, giving him no choice but to stay put and defend himself. Rie asks why he tried to assassinate the PM before, but Hitomi reveals that he had merely gone to discuss things with him, but he didn't listen and sent his agents on him, forcing him to kill them to escape. He admits it's a shame to go through such means to make the codebreakers public, but Eden and the PM forced his hand. Besides, it's not only the codebreakers he's trying to protect, but the thousands of special ability children that the government snatches from parents for research and recruitment as codebreakers, a glorified term for dogs of the government. Meanwhile, Miss Kanda and Toki face Hike, who uses his dazzling light to multiply himself and attack Toki all at once. The twinkling bastards shake Toki up by reminding him of the PM's imminent death, making him inch closer to his lost phase. However, Toki uses all of his strength to stop Hike's ultimate attack and kicks his glittery ass. After that, he goes up to where his father and Prime Minister is tied up but refuses to free him. Meanwhile, Yukina infiltrates the building where the special ability children are kept, but is confronted by Prince, who survived Hike's attack on the bridge. She fights him with the belief that they will save the children and Hitomi without any compromise. Meanwhile, Hitomi beats Rie up and claims the bombs cannot be stopped because they've been rigged to set off at a particular time, and he has no control over them anymore. In such a situation, they may as well watch as civilians are terrorized enough to need heroes that save them. Rie can't believe his former leader has turned so rotten, but Hitomi was on about how all their codebreaker missions are meant to serve the state in Eden. The Yakuza that Rie eradicated were targeted because they were aiding him, despite there being many other Yakuza doing evil. Same with Tabata and the G-Falcons. He asks Rie one last time to join him, but he declines, saying he understands Eden is evil, but so is Hitomi for killing so many people. After that, he ends up going lost, but Sakura protects him before Hitomi can kill him. Meanwhile, Sakura's father and the Yakikura men follow up on an anonymous tip about the location of the bomb controllers. Alarmingly, they find two special ability kids guarding the van, broadcasting the signal for detonating bombs. Hitomi has had enough of Sakura and starts choking her, while Rie is unable to save her in his lost state. The timer reaches its end, but no detonation occurs, and the PM is still alive. Hike reveals he put a stop to this madness by sending locations of the van and the facility where the children were. Yuki destroyed the van while the two kids were distracted by the Yukikara, and Prince bought time by fighting Yukihana, while the others evacuated the special abilities kids to another location. However, Hitomi uses his backup plan as a last measure. He chose the Sky Tower as it is a prime location for using his powers to detonate all the bombs at once. Hike is unable to stop him, but Prince saves the day by enveloping the tower in her shadow. Toki destroys the camera broadcasting the PM's face and threatens to kill him, but stops himself because that would make him no different from his father, who uses his kids as state dogs. The only reason Toki became a codebreaker is so that Fujiwara would be left alone to live a normal life. The codebreaker crew play another round of This Isn't You, with Hitomi until Rie takes out his ring and reveals the true extent of his power. Rie is absolutely OP now and absorbs Hitomi's strongest power without breaking a sweat. Finally, he uses his finishing move to defeat Hitomi. After that, Hitomi is attacked by his own powers because he's reached his code end. In his last moments, he confesses he used such drastic means to change Eden because he knew he didn't have enough time. Above all, he didn't want others with special abilities to suffer this dreadful fate. He apologizes to his former comrades for putting them in danger and realizes his plan won't all go to waste if they come out to the public as the heroes who stopped the mastermind of all this terrorism. However, the Prime Minister just straight up shuts this down, causing Hitomi to get into a fit of rage to kill him, but the Codebreakers stop him together and ask him to leave the rest of them so that more evil doesn't get added to him. Finally, feeling a sense of calm, Hitomi succumbs to his death. The Codebreakers mourn his death, the only ones who ever knew about his existence. Later, Toki overhears the public giving the credit for defusing this crisis to the police. The Prime Minister obnoxiously celebrates his survival with Hike and praises him for creating a situation that drew out Ri's true powers, their objective in their grand agenda of defeating someone named Siki. The Prime Minister looks forward to using Ri and the rare breed Sakura for his own purposes, not having changed at all after his near-death incident. Suddenly, an electric spark flashes around his neck, and he starts coughing up blood, a last hurrah by Hitomi. All the Codebreakers, except Ri, say their goodbyes to Sakura before they go on separate missions. Wow, that's Sundeer all the way to the end, huh? Sakura returns to her normal life, but never forgets the silent heroes who put their life on the line for all of society. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for part 2, and watch this next video on screen.